I guess I wasn't recording, but like I said, the seven of candles. This is like the seven of wands, and for Taurus right now, I was just mentioning that the moon is in the first degree of Taurus at the moment, and the moon is exalted into Taurus, and so we're seeing this seven of wands. This, in the traditional Rider-Waite depiction, this is like the person standing on the hill and having to defend their territory. People are kind of attacking from below, so you do have the higher ground, but you have to stand and defend yourself. This is about, standing up for what you believe in. So someone is perhaps coming up against you, Taurus, but you have to stand firm on your beliefs. The depiction in Rider-Waite is, this person has, mixed match shoes on, but they have the higher ground. So you actually have the higher ground in this situation, even though you may be on shaky ground. You do have the higher ground, but you just had to stand and defend. And it's like, in battle, people don't attack on certain type of terrains, right? You have to use that military strategy, but having the upper ground is always an advantage. So you have an advantage against these people who are kind of coming up against you. This says, and the man shuddered and turned his face away and fled afar off in haste, so that I beheld him no more. So I feel like, whoever has been coming up against you, like, they weren't ready for whatever you had to say, whatever your defense against them. They weren't ready for it, and so rather than continuing this battle, they are leaving in retreat. So I feel like, this feels like a partial victory. This is like the first step in this road to victory for Taurus. Last night I heard, as I was asleep, I heard my name. I woke up to like my name being called, and because of that, it made me remember the certain things that I was dreaming right before that, and it made me also look at the time. And of course I looked at the time. It was 3:16, which for me has like a lot of religious significance. John 3:16, right? And so I feel like, this is a very important, that like this moment right now is just very important for everyone. It's important for me, especially because the sun is kind of this moon is triggering like my natal sun. But I think if you're a Taurus, you're definitely like feeling this energy where you've had to defend yourself, and the advice here is to continue to defend yourself, to not let anyone sway you, to throw you off, to continue to hold your ground and hold your beliefs. I'm seeing the Ace of Wands down there, but also the four of quills. I'll consider that at the bottom. So I think this is about defending this type of healing journey. People perhaps are like looking at you like, if you're a spiritualist, if you read tarot, if you are saying that, oh, you have spiritual gifts, prophetic abilities, if you've been speaking in tongues lately, if you've been fasting and praying, if you're doing semen retention, anything like that, people may be saying like, oh, this person is crazy, they're weird. But you have to defend, and I feel like you've been standing strong in your beliefs about, this is what I need to do for my own personal healing. And so continue to do that. Don't let anyone tell you that, oh, what you're doing doesn't make sense, what you're doing is crazy. You know what I mean? The Five of Quills. This came up yesterday in the read, but this Five of Quills is like, this is all of the talk that's going on about you. Like you this is what you're having to defend yourself against. Like, people got a lot to say. Everybody got their sword drawn and like are, accusing you of certain things, but continue to stand your ground. It doesn't matter what these people are saying about you, because your intuition is your best guide. Your inner guide is your best guide, because all you have to do is look around at these people and you'll see how, most of what they're projecting, negativity that they're projecting out to you, is only coming back to hit them. So as much as you're doing your healing work, it is protecting you. It's that protection around you that's keeping you from, experiencing all this negative projection. Like, you probably sense the negative projection around you, but you're doing everything that you need to do to defend yourself from it, right? At the bottom of that is the 9 of Candles. So I feel like people are, the 9 of Candles is like the 9 of Wands. Let me think about this for a second. So yeah, so this particular thing that they're saying about you: I stand amid the roar on a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of golden sand. Yeah, I really feel like what's being said is that, like, you've been at this for a long time. Like, this is right before the 10, which is where you put down the burden, you drop the burden, right? So I feel like people have been saying, like, oh, this person got, all of this, like, they, from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, you have all of these burdens going on. Like, you have all of this, baggage, all of this, like, it's so much that they want to project onto you, when in actuality, that may not necessarily be the case for you, right? I feel like Taurus is very grounded right now. Taurus is always a pretty grounded sign. The Taurus that I'm dealing with has, like, some family stuff going on, like, really trying to help family members. And the 2 of Paws, like, juggling. And this is, I was saying, like, with the Taurus that I know is going, what they're dealing with right now, and it's definitely like a juggling situation in a lot of ways, right? So I feel like Taurus may be juggling, trying to do things for self and trying to do things for others. The responsibilities that you owe to yourself, keeping that balance with the responsibilities that you owe to other people. And perhaps there's some gossip about this juggling thing. Like, if you're juggling relationships, there may be some gossiping about the relationships that you're juggling. There may be some gossip about, like, your family members, like, stuff that they may have going on, but you may not want everyone to kind of know about these certain things. I feel like that's going on in this trying to find balance. It says, I became insane with long intervals of horrible sanity. So perhaps what people see are, like, moments. You may have a moment where you're frustrated and you scream at people, and then they say, oh, that person is crazy, just because of that moment. But actually, the moment may be when, things kind of came to a head and you expressed yourself in a way out of frustration. But in actuality, you have, like, more reflective moments. Like, you're spending time in solitude, like, doing a lot of thinking, a lot of reflecting. It could be a very mercurial time for Taurus to be, like, kind of like, in your head, really, like, thinking about how you want things to go. And I think it's always beneficial to kind of think about the positive. So we got a 7, and then we got this 2 and the 5, which is also 7. And 7 is 14, which is an overall of 5. So this is definitely still about this kind of conflict situation that has been going on. People having a lot to say. You're defending yourself about it. But I feel like things are coming into balance. I feel like you're balancing the spiritual and your practical in a very good way. And that's really, like, your defense against, whatever this conflict that's coming up against you, all these things that people have to say, all these accusations against you that you're defending yourself against, that the way that you've been defending it is by staying very balanced. Someone perhaps wants you to act up. Like, people are attacking you to try to get you to like respond in a certain kind of way, so that they can then say, oh, that person is crazy, look at how they're behaving, look at this crazy person. Like, they want you to kind of step outside of your balanced energy to respond in a way that they can then point to and say, oh, they're crazy, I told you they was crazy, didn't I tell you? That's what they want to happen. But and in actuality, they're probably doing a lot of stuff that reflects poorly on their state of mental health, that that they're so invested in trying to undermine you reflects on what's going on with them mentally, what's going on with them spiritually. And so, but they're so invested in it to the point that they begin to look crazy while trying to trigger the crazy out of you. But you have been doing this, this balancing act, and you're doing it you're isolated. It's the only person here. This is like a group of people. They got people that they have to gossip to, that they have to prove all of this stuff to, that all of this story, they're telling it to them. But you're over here defending yourself against all these attacks that they're sending your way, and you're doing it with spirit, right? You're balancing out, you're balancing out the 3D and the 5D. Spirit is there to help you, and a bit your intuition is there, and and it's just you and God, who are really working this out. So that's some. It feels like I said, it feels like you're in this period where you're getting really close to dropping whatever this burden is, right? Look at you in spirit sitting there looking at the moon, right? Something could have happened on this full moon that just passed, probably really starts this final cycle of letting it out. Behind that was the judgment, kind of like the judgment in reverse. But it says, from my infancy I was noted for the docility and humanity of my disposition. Wow, that resonates with me a lot. I feel like you may be a person who's not necessarily known as being super aggressive, you're probably a little bit different. If you're a woman, you may be someone who's probably a little bit more masculine in the sense. If you're a man, you might be someone who's a bit more feminine. You may be more of a diplomat than an aggressor, right? And Mars is in Libra right now, which is really represents that diplomatic energy, right? Because Mars is usually the planet of war, and so when you put it in Libra and justice, it's about being more peace inclined. It's about being more ready to to mediate and try to mitigate any type of explosions, as opposed to exacerbating, making things blow up, right? So I feel people know your true kind of character, but they're working very hard to try to pull you out of that. They want to make you appear like you're crazy. They want to give justification to say, oh, I'm scared of that person, right? But people know your true nature, right? Very interesting, Taurus. Perhaps it's a bit more mundane because the moon is just moving into Taurus after this full moon in Pisces. Any more advice for my Taurus? Advice for my Taurus. Advice for the Taurus. Okay. The 8 of Quills, which is the 8 of Swords. Eight of Swords can be like this, this mental imprisonment. I do see a little bit of justice in this card too, because I see the pendulum swinging, but the pendulum is kind of like out of balance. But this card usually talks about being in your own mental prison. And so this is about breaking yourself free. It says, arousing from the most profound of slumbers, we break the gossamer web of some dream. So it's very, very interesting because like I said, I started this reading talking about how, I was asleep and I woke to hearing my name being called. And of course, because I woke in that moment, I heard my name, and to me, I'm thinking about, oh, this is like the scripture when you hear God call your name, but I absolutely heard my name and it woke me up, and it made me remember some of the things that were kind of happening in my dream. And I'll share some of the things that I saw in my dream. I don't know if it's more specific to me, probably, but it maybe will resonate with some of you guys. But one of the things that I saw was there was like a parade. It was like an African parade that was going on. I could see all of these ladies kind of walking by, and they all had on like African attire, but it was like a street parade, and I could see that they were coming up the street that I was on, and it was like perhaps I was there waiting, I guess at it could have been like a bus, like a bus stop or something like that, though it wasn't a bus stop. It felt more like I was inside of an elevator kind of looking out, but a parade of like African women, and I could see over or down the next block, and they were parading through there as well. So I do feel like that may represent a lot of spirits around, a lot of ancestors who are around at the moment, because I was seeing hundreds of these African women in their like kind of not formal dresses, but certainly like in the attire, kind of not necessarily tribal, but kind of like dressier like dresses, and everyone was matching, but they were like different groups. There was like a group that all had on like green dresses with like green kind of African prints. I saw a lot of green actually with this group that was walking. So I saw that. I also saw something about say if someone had like a bunch of like a box full of files or something like that, kind of looking through these files. So there's some kind of important documentation perhaps that is coming up too. And I also saw this like thing of a document in the cards just now. So that perhaps will resonate with someone, that there's some kind of important document that that you may need to address, or that someone is looking at. There's some kind of documentation or something like that that's kind of happening at the moment. So that's something else that I feel like is kind of coming up for Taurus. The Pisces, if you are a Taurus, say you're a Taurus rising, then that Pisces moon would have been kind of in your 11th house, which would have been with your network and your friends, right? So perhaps this is in reference to like Aquarian themes are kind of coming up for right now, are kind of manifesting for Taurus. So this could be like travel to someplace internationally. Taurus, I know, is about to go on a trip to Jerusalem, and so you may be either traveling internationally, particularly to some type of religious space. So it may not be Jerusalem. You may be going to some, say like if you're in the States, it may be some kind of community where you don't even know that there's like an Indian mound there, or it could be something very like very African. So it could be like going to like the coast of the Carolinas, where there's like Geechee people, or like New Orleans, where there's like Creole people. But I get like this feeling of like a collective, like your global collective that you are a part of. And that could be happening through the interwebs, and it could be happening just in your imagination. You may be watching a documentary about a different place, but you may need to connect to that kind of energy, Taurus. Any more messages for my Taurus? The page of pause. Yeah, I think if the page of pause can sometimes be seen as somebody broke, they don't have a lot of money. So it may be that, if you have some money, you can go. Taurus usually has a lot of money. But that's not always the case. But if you are kind of tight on funds right now, then taking that trip, maybe you do take that trip in your imagination. Maybe that is about getting a good book to read that allows your mind to go to a different place. Watching a documentary, it may be a documentary on Egypt, on the pyramids or the Maya or something like that. So, it's just a time for you to kind of disconnect from where you are currently and let your mind be free to move into another spot. And that kind of I see that in that 8 of swords as well. It's a time for you to kind of disconnect from your current environments, because your current environments are probably where you're experiencing a lot of this kind of psychic attack, right? So I hope this message has been useful for you, Taurus. Like I said, the moon is in Taurus, but the moon is very comfortable in Taurus. That's where the moon is exalted. So I think sometimes that the exaltation of a particular planet will mean that planet's energies are stronger. So the moon is about emotionality. So this may be a time when, you are a bit more emotional, but don't let that necessarily be seen as something that's bad. Emotions are a natural and healthy part of what we deal with, and so you need to embrace those emotions, because emotions actually help you to get through a lot of things, right? It helps your body to kind of deal with certain things the way you let emotions out. So you may have to let some emotions out, but you may want to be balanced in how you let those emotions out. Okay, Taurus? All right. Give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate it.